Good evening. Welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting of Thursday, December 6th, which is now called to order. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes minutes from the regular session of 11:15-12, budget and finance minutes of 11:14-12, budget and finance minutes of 11:27-12, safety minutes of 11:8-12, and the acceptance of warrants 21V13, 23V13, 22P13.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is our student rep, Cole.
So yesterday we just had our jazz and a cappella concert for the a cappella ensembles and the jazz ensembles, which was very fun. And I think everyone did a very fantastic job. And we also, I know we didn't see you after our pep rally, but that was also very, very fun.
That was very fun. I did go with you.
Yeah.
It was very fun.
And I think everyone enjoyed their Thanksgiving vacation. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much it that's going on.
Great.
And everyone's just gearing up for the holidays.
So fall sports are over?
Yes, they are, and winter sports are coming.
Winter sports are coming up.
Yep.
Okay.
Actually, they started
Did they start?
Monday after Thanksgiving, I think.
They did.
So
Yeah.
actually,
I don't know if
Chris
they
does a
had the
really
first
nice
game.
job of giving the weekly update as to what's coming up. So the
Okay.
games are beginning.
All right. And is the play well underway
Yes.
for
Yeah.
practicing and
Are
organizing
you in
all
that, Cole?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm playing Sky Masterson in that, so that's
Okay.
very fun.
All right. Good.
All right. Okay. All right. So next up is audiences. If anyone from the public wishes to speak on anything on the agenda, it's your turn now. All right. If it's okay with the committee, I said in my email, I'm going to move Chris to the front because he's in the middle of the football banquet right now. So we're going to have
don't
him
wanna
come up.
keep him
And
from
Mr.
that.
Adams, if you want to come up with him, or
No.
I'm not sure how you want to do it. You're all set?
I'm all set. Thanks.
Okay. So the reason that what we're discussing is a change to the athletic handbook,
Right.
as it
Yes.
relates to middle school sports, because we haven't
Yes.
addressed that in our handbook at all.
Right.
So Chris has a proposal that we're going to talk about, and it falls into us because we have the ultimate approval of the handbook. So any changes we have to approve.
Right.
So essentially, there was no trial policy in the middle school handbook, and because of that, different programs and different coaches, even from year to year, were doing their tryouts differently. So some years they kept, say, in middle school basketball, 2 6th graders, 3 7th graders, 10 8th graders. Some years it was the best 15 kids make it, and so it's been really inconsistent. So we wanted to shore that up. So we wrote a new policy that will be consistent across the board. It has the varsity coach as really being the one that approves the tryout evaluation form, and it has multiple coaches evaluating each kid so everyone gets a fair tryout.
So does anyone have any questions about the changes that he wants to make, which are the addition of the tryout policy, and then how addition 1 outlines who can play on the team, and then addition 2 is what's going to happen with tryouts. That's what we're.
Yeah, it's open to everyone in the middle school, and whoever's rated the top 15 through an objective evaluation that's approved by myself and the varsity coach will make the team.
Well, that's for basketball.
For basketball, and for field hockey,
And
which is if we had
field hockey 15,
Um,
or it's to the roster size.
right, to the roster size. And then they could always keep more if they wanted to. But.
Okay. I didn't have any questions. Did anyone have?
I just have a question. I didn't go to the signups, but I know last year they actually provided in the packet to the parents like an outline of what they would be looking at during the tryouts. Did you provide that?
The coaches do that. So the coaches have a meeting.
Okay.
And they'll give out their expectations because every sport is different.
Right.
In that sense.
Okay.
But could you say a little bit, Chris, because you and I chatted today about it, like one of the coaches has already designed it.
Right.
So could you say a little bit about what some of those items are. Would that help you, Barbie?
Yes.
Sure. So this is from Dave Tucker, our girls basketball coach, and this is the form that he used for his tryouts. Basically, every kid is listed, and there's X amount of categories. They're sport specific, so defense, hustle, box out, rebounding, conditioning, attitude, offense, so on and so forth. And they're rated from 1 needs improvement to 2 average, 3 good, 4 very good. So it's just a way of, at the end, if a kid doesn't make the team, you can go through it and say, this is how you ranked. This is how you rated. These are the things you need to improve on so that next year you might have a shot at it. Obviously, we don't compare one kid to another, so all the other kids are blacked out because we never want to do that. But each player is evaluated in multiple categories that they're aware of so that at the end of the day, they know why they did make the team or why they didn't make the team.
So did we know, like, so are we using that for the girls?
This is the
Middle
girls.
school?
Yep. So the girls varsity program developed this, and the middle school will be using it. The boys have their own form, which is
We know the boys have a form?
They do. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And who runs the tryouts?
So the middle school coach would run the tryouts with the support from the varsity JV freshman program, depending on who's available. So like on Tuesday of next week, our boys are actually on the road. So Mike Rowinski can't be there, but the freshman coach will be there.
So it'll be more than one
And
person.
I, they are recommending at least 2 coaches. And I think that's probably to try to, well, it's good for the one coach to kind of hear from what the other coach is thinking, but it's also more fair to the children.
Absolutely.
To the athletes.
And what will happen if there is a situation where a child, like that 4-day tryout,
Yep.
if there's an absence within that 4 days for any, sickness, or do we have something that,
Well, there's a 4-day tryout period.
Right.
So the tryouts are Monday through Thursday,
Thursday.
and then cuts would be made on Friday. So.
right, but every day the children are expected to be there,
Yeah,
correct? So
that's-
what if it happens that they get sick, or would that mean that they're not eligible?
It's a good question. I think it would probably be up to the coach's discretion. If they had a real need to extend the tryouts for everyone, they could do that.
I
But-
just know there's a lot of sicknesses going around right now.
Right.
I'd hate for a child to be sick and then.
But it's
and
tough. You,
not
at some
have
point,
that.
you have to make your team. You know,
What?
at some point, you do have to
You
make.
have to decide on
Yeah,
who, yeah.
and that can be tough. I mean, what if a kid broke their leg? Are we going to say, oh, we're going to make the team in 2 months when you're healed? So it's a tough question, but it's really to the coach's judgment, I think, on that.
Okay.
Okay, so they're not, so if a child cannot make it the first day because they're ill and they
Right,
show
they
up
can
on
come the second day. That's
second,
totally
third,
fine.
or fourth
Yeah.
day, they're not penalized for
No.
that. Okay. Are there any questions, concerns? So we're not gonna have 30 kids in a gym with one coach?
2 coaches.
Or, no, my point is, there will be 2 coaches
Yes.
in there. And how do they know who the players are? How are they
There's different ways of
identified?
doing that. Different coaches. Some coaches will put a number on the kid. Some coaches I've seen them take a picture of the kid so that they have their picture with their evaluation form. There's different ways of doing it.
Okay, but that's ironed out and
But that would
that's,
certainly be easy enough to standardize, would it not?
Right.
Right. I
but
mean,
it's
that would-
clear.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Dave, how do you do it? Do you number them? How do you do?
Depends on how many kids we have. I usually don't. It takes me about maybe an hour to get the kids' names down.
So you do it by name?
With that.
Yeah, okay.
And by the way, we line them up, put them in the same lines so you have the same kids.
Okay.
I mean, it's a subjective process, but it sounds like you're trying to make it as objective as you can make a subjective process, right?
Absolutely.
And will the players know on Friday who made
Yes.
the team? There won't be any waiting until
No.
Monday.
There's
End of the day on
2:15.
End of the day on Friday.
Yes.
Because they'll be busy tallying scores on Friday.
But we don't want to. We've talked about this. We don't want to post the results in the morning on Friday because that's
Oh,
just
yeah,
chaos.
Kids'
Okay.
Day. Yeah.
But
right.
Friday afternoon is the best time to do it, and they don't practice on Friday, so they get the day off,
don't.
and then
Okay.
Monday the team comes back. And Friday the coaches will be available to talk with the players who didn't make the team.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Great.
Questions, concerns? All right. So, let's see. I just want to make sure we didn't have anything else going on with that. All right. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the recommended changes to the athletic handbook as presented.
So, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All set.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Enjoy the banquet, Chris.
Have fun at the
Thanks,
banquet.
Chris.
Thanks for
Yeah,
coming
have
out.
fun.
All right. Let's see. Nothing.
Thank you,
on-
Dave.
Thanks for
Welcome.
coming.
Have a nice night.
See you soon.
Thanks. Nothing else on the public agenda. Actually, no public agenda items tonight.
No.
All right, superintendent's report, nothing. School reports, nothing. All right, special, any questions on the superintendent's information for the committee? Barbie pointed out something.
thanks to Barbie.
Wait a minute. No. I was just wondering when we might expect to hear back from NEASC regarding this special progress report.
We're never sure about that. I mean, usually within a month, we'll hear.
I was just looking for a ballpark like that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Barbie actually pointed out that we had the date incorrect
the original
on
day of town
when
meeting.
town meeting was.
Oh, okay.
Because Peter had included the original date of October 29th. So he sent a follow-up letter saying that he had the incorrect date. The real
And
date was
Sandy made that change.
October, what, or November 1st?
November 1st.
November 1st. So that went out.
That's better.
So as an
That
adjustment.
could have caused a little problem, couldn't it?
You know, we better be safe
look
than
professional,
sorry. Yeah, just,
Yeah, no,
If
we should have the correct information.
and if there was ever any question, you're right, about when the vote actually took place
Right,
at town
or
meeting, it's always good to have
No, it
that.
was
I don't
very
want to
good.
be nitpicky.
No, it's not nitpicky at all.
Okay, next up is the financial report. Sorry, I'm just joined because we had him go first, so I'm all over the place here. And there was a special ed funding update. Did anyone have any questions on that?
Yes, we're all happy with that.
Yes.
Although it just seems to me like, can we be so sure?
No,
Unfortunately, no. That's,
we
Sure,
can,
it's good news, but like, should we really bank on that, or should we ask?
well,
No.
we, all we can do is budget based on what we know. And, we will, obviously, this is a report as to where we are at this moment in time,
Right.
right? You know, new information may come along and we may need to make adjustments. But I think why it was important to do it now is because if we're making an inquiry with the Finance and Advisory Board as to whether that 250 that the town appropriate is going to go into our base.
Right.
And as it turns out, based on the numbers we're looking at right now, we don't need that 250 at this moment in our base. We want to be honest with the town. So
Sure.
that's where we are now. That's not to say that, you know, at budget time, we may, new information may be uncovered, or even over the course of next year, something might come up and we need to go back to the town again. But we did make a commitment to take that money, put it in a special line, and then watch it. And based on where people are, where we are right now, we're not needing, it looks like, the 250 at this point in time. So it's really just for committee's information.
yeah, and unfortunately, children
Yeah,
and
it's-
families move in and
In and
out
out.
of
Well,
town.
that's just what I was thinking and said, and children change. I mean,
Right.
their needs
Absolutely.
are get identified at different developmental stages, and
That's
so
correct. Yeah.
you know, we don't always know when somebody will be identified for
And it's usually,
out of
like,
district. And
No.
and as Carol has said, every year when we go through the budget, many districts will put a placeholder in for
Yes.
special ed and say, we've identified all the students that we have out of district placements for, all their tuitions and all their expenses, but there may be
Well,
additional
that's
needs.
what I was thinking. Is that not possible to say, you know, here's where we're at, here's where we are, here's our history of having had to come to you.
Yeah.
Could we take that extra money and have it as a placeholder?
We certainly could. I mean, technically, we can.
We-
The issue is our bottom line is one number.
Yes,
So in
absolutely.
order to put that placeholder in, we have to reduce from somewhere else.
Right.
So
Or,
that-
or you have to set that money
or-
aside knowing that you can't spend it on something else. And as Ann said, if we don't have the extra money to afford what we have to make some choices. How we usually handle that is we hope we'll have money in circuit breaker, which is a reimbursement. Because as some of these costs that are added this year, come next year, we'll be reimbursed for a portion of those. I think Ann explained that at the last meeting, the way that works. So we would take that money that we get for reimbursement. If we don't have to use it to spend on an actual placement, that money can sit there and then can be used if we need it.
Right, but
That's,
it's not an exact science.
but
It's
just
not.
if you followed any
It's-
information on the governor, what the governor said recently, you saw he made those 9C cuts and he cut circuit breaker reimbursement. So.
What did he cut it to?
Well, across the, there was a number across the state, across, you know,
It was 9 million across.
But, so we didn't define a percentage.
he, not per district yet.
Okay.
You know, so sometimes what they'll do is say, okay, everybody takes a 1% cut. You know, but we haven't heard that yet. We just know that there's an amount of money across the state that he cut out of circuit breaker reimbursement. And it's not determined yet how that's going to impact us or any other district. But as soon as we know, we will let you know. But that's an example of here, you know, I think we told you about this, the year we were supposed to get 72% reimbursement and they went to 38% in the year that Georgetown was scheduled to get the highest reimbursement that we had gotten in years, because we had a very busy year, I guess, with special education on the district costs. And it happens. So I think your point is well made, Alana. We just never know, but we do the best we can to be as accurate as we can with the information we have. And we hope circuit breaker's going to allow us to have some extra if we need
And
it.
if we find out with these initial budget cuts that next year's budget's gonna have a significant change in circuit breaker, that's gonna make that will impact us
Right.
greatly.
Right, and what we've had to do, which is why I think it's good that the FinCom has, you know, kind of was willing to support our request to the town, is that we generally freeze our budget, don't do certain things that we've budgeted to do, because we can't end the year on the wrong side of the line.
Right.
So we have to do that kind of thing, and that's always a little precarious, because there are things that, you know, we would like to do, need to do, but don't do because we have these costs.
Sure.
So, special ed is very, it's very potentially, it can go up and down pretty quickly.
All right.
All right.
So we'll keep tracking that and move along with
Yep.
that. Subcommittee reports. Budget and finance. Barbie?
Let me just get the minutes there. The last, meeting we had was on November 27th. And we actually, got all the budget priorities from
Okay.
committee members. So I don't know if you want, do you want me to read? what the
No, that's okay.
priorities
Is
were?
there, you guys are moving along on the budget and
Yes, we're moving along on the budget, and that was one of the questions that, you know, Rob and I both had was, you know, what are we gonna do about the 250,000, so that's good that's been resolved. And we do not have another meeting set up,
okay.
but yes, we're moving along great.
I had I sent an email to Andy. He left me a message to call him today. We're playing phone tag right now, so I'll have a sense of, a couple questions that I have for him are the February 9th meeting or the Saturday in February meeting. The problem that we have with that is we need to have a public hearing before we release our budget to the, you know, well, actually, the way the process works is Carol presents the budget. We get the superintendent's recommended budget. We review that at 2 meetings. Usually we split it up between 2 meetings. Then we have a public hearing. Then we have school committee adoption, and then it becomes a school committee budget. In order for us to meet a first week in February deadline, we almost have to have the budget we need to dedicate our 2 January meetings to reviewing the budget, then schedule a public hearing and an adoption. I don't know the reality that can actually come to fruition and have the number mean anything, especially in light of hearing that we're having funding cut mid-year by the state. So I don't know what that impact is gonna be. So I have a call into him to try to figure that out, as well as get some guidance on, are we level funding, level services, and things like that.
Mike Farrell told us at a department meeting that he is still waiting for some opportunity to have the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen provide some guidance, but he told departments to go forward and put together a level services budget, figuring in the town's unions, I believe, got a 2.5% increase, so figure that in, and then we obviously figure in what our increase has been. You know, he said, keep it as close to, you know, level services, meaning, you know, pretty much keep what you have. This isn't the time to add a lot of new things. And we'll see where that kind of a budget goes. He's also expecting the town departments now to enter their budgets into the right into the munis program, which has never been done before. People have generally done their budgets in different ways, usually on spreadsheets that get rolled up into a certain presentation format. But he hasn't trained everybody on that. They've canceled the training, so I'm not sure how that's all going to play
Make
out.
for
But
a
it,
fun meeting.
it plays into, it plays a little into what you're saying, Ann, which is if people are expected to put things into a certain format and then the format's not available and people haven't been trained, how does the budget timeline get affected by that?
Right, yes.
So I think Ann's right, there's more information to come, but what we're doing, just for your information, Joan and I discussed a format that we want to use. That's Jim had his format
Yeah.
last year, and Joan can roll that up into Jim's format. But for the purposes of the building principals, what they're doing is they're being given a copy of their school budget with all the lines that they can spend out of. They're getting on that document. It says here's what you spent 3 years in a row in those lines, and here's basically what you budgeted this year, and here's what you tell us that you're going to budget if you are going to budget anything in that line. And then there's a place for a description. So we're not asking everybody to go and say, with supplies, go what I'm specifically going to buy out of what catalogs, but we are saying, if there are things that need to be identified, they need to be identified there. And then Joan will take all that information, and then because it's going to be in Excel spreadsheets, we can sort it in whatever
And she
way
can
we want.
consolidate it.
And we can consolidate it.
Based on-
So we think that's an easier method, but we also think it's a good process for the principals because they can look historically, as opposed to just
Sounds
deciding in this moment in
Yeah.
time, this is what I need. So that, we've already done that. Joan has gotten that information out, and it'll be starting to come back
We
in.
had
but-
done that with George. That's how we had.
Oh, is that how you did it with
Yeah,
George?
we always looked at the historic trends and just said,
Yeah.
okay, where are we? And
Yeah, it makes sense to do that.
just
And then
so
all
you-
that
then you have a
backup,
basis. For
and
it.
all that backup information like you got last year on staffing and, that'll all be
all be in there.
included as well.
Revolving accounts.
And revolving accounts and grants, we'll have information in the budget document as well.
All right. Okay, moving right along to governance.
We plan on meeting on Monday.
Monday,
Monday
okay.
morning.
Negotiating.
That is the 12th, I think, right?
Which we may
Which one
need
are
to
we
res-
talking about?
Oh
Are we
no,
talking-
just negotiating
Oh,
subcommittee.
Oh, negotiating subcommittee, because we
Yeah,
have
we
two
made the-
groups that we're meeting.
Yeah,
That 12th, there was an issue
Yeah.
with that.
Yes. That was with the
because it
teachers,
was-
right?
Well, they changed the fifth grade concert
Yes.
from Thursday to Wednesday.
Right.
So that was a
Right.
question that I had.
okay,
And
so we
then-
can figure that.
Yeah.
out.
GISA is the
G-
17th. I
17th.
believe.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's.
And
that's
we're gonna
going
meet
well.
ahead of time.
Well, you wanted to meet
Thursday.
next
We
week.
need to.
Thursday.
Yeah, we need to figure out a time to do
Yeah,
that.
let's do
'cause
that.
Between all the concert and athletic schedules, it's,
Yeah. But we do need to do it because
Yeah.
we really need to be ready on the 17th with the response.
to
Right.
speak with them. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Public relations.
We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning at 8:30, and we will continue work on the headline content boxes to try to get the new website ready to roll.
Great.
As soon as it's
Rollable.
rollable, what everybody can
Ready
agree
to
upon,
roll.
yes.
Great.
And I also just wanted to let you all know about the public safety meeting that we had on the 11th. It was November 15th, and it was put on by Rusty Ricker and Al Beardsley of the fire department, and it was basically to ensure that Georgetown is ready should any emergency situation come up. What would we do? And they gave us a sample situation of the school. So the school was represented. Carol was, Jacobs was there. I was there. Joan Laporto was there. Mike Anderson was there. And Margaret Mayer was there. So we were all formed a team. And they gave us a situation, which was an explosion of inks at Chi in the
Danvers.
yes, actually not the one in Danvers, in
but yeah,
Georgetown, right? Yeah,
exactly.
what would happen if the inks exploded and there was a big fire and there were noxious gases and how would we respond? And it actually happened in the example at like 2:30. This is just pretend. 2:30 in the afternoon. And so the question was, how would we keep all the children, all the students safe? And the bus company was there also, and, representatives from NRT. And, we discussed who would we call, what would the process be, how would we get the information out to the parents, what would we, advise the parents to do, and it was very, very interesting. And we had guidance there from the fire department, and the police were there, and the state police were there, and, it was a really interesting exercise.
And then there was a gas leak last week, and all those, we were just talking about that at the department head meeting, how every one of those departments that was represented there, it was like the communication was like seamless. And a lot of that, I think, is because there are drills like that.
Had an opportunity to think it
sense.
through, yeah. And it was part of the certification for the Georgetown Fire Department.
Yeah,
Great.
So,
very good.
Building committee.
I would say that we have a meeting coming up next Tuesday at 7:30. It's been bumped to 7:30, and prior to that, we've started, or there will be the start of a new site development portion of the committee, which is going to be meeting at 6:30, to which I will be on that committee. And the schedule.
Is that open to the public, site development?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's out there. It's all open to the public. I'm not sure. It's open to the public, but I'm not sure if it's public input might be up to the.
But people can
Yeah.
attend?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
about
it,
it.
really, yeah.
No.
They're
Do we know
completing
any
the contract with the
Do we have any
OPMs.
dates that we need to be aware of things that are going to be coming before us? Because I'm worried about our budget cycle in January and February is going to be crazy, and we'll have to have meetings kind of squished in between meetings.
We'll have
and
to ask. We
I
can
asked
ask.
for an electronic file of the schedule if it was ready to send out,
Okay.
and I haven't heard back from Michelle yet.
Okay.
Yeah, if you,
So we can get that.
yeah, so if we can just know that so that everyone can be aware, so that we can get that on the agenda. All right. So the next meeting for them is I'm just looking for the date. The 11th? Okay,
Yeah, next Tuesday.
December 11th. All right.
So busy month.
Okay. Any other subcommittees that I forgot about or didn't include? No. I remembered building committee. Okay, old business is the turf field discussion. Okay. All right, so it looks like Carol has sent an email at the end of the day and had a bunch of information included in the packet.
Thanks for this.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
It's clearly across the board.
It was
It's
very,
like-
it was very interesting. It was very interesting to look at the issues.
I will just jump in on this. Is that right?
Yeah, go.
Just to clarify that I've gotten the answers to the questions that I needed. I spoke with Bill Seymour, I believe is his name, who is at Gale Associates, who's the firm they've hired. Long story short, I have all the information that I was asking about, and I appreciate Carol's help with that greatly.
No, you're welcome.
Right. Is everyone clear on like what, one of the things that was confusing last time, that's why I sent the email out. We get faced with issues and sometimes if you have the history behind the issue, you understand what we're voting on, and other times you don't understand. So that's why I tried to lay out like what the
Hard
issue
to understand
is.
something you've never been involved in.
And so the reason why it's important, the reason why we're faced with this is because GAA's been raising funds over the years to develop a turf field at this high school. So it becomes our issue because it's our fields. And they've also been working with us over the years to maintain our fields. Like they've maintained, they haven't done all of our fields, but they've really heavily invested in the varsity baseball field.
They've invested in all of our fields.
And yeah, so I don't want to say they're cherry picking, but the varsity
No.
baseball field, you
Oh,
can
yeah,
see
that,
what
yeah, they're very involved
what they've
in
done with
field.
that, and I do know that they do a lot of work on the football field with like, I'm gonna mess up what they do there, but rototilling, it's not rototilling, it's like aerating. They aerate, they Also try to work on the JV field, but I think that requires a lot more effort and resources.
Yeah, I mean, they've put back, like at the JV field just alone, they replaced, first of all, they cleared the whole hill on the back, because that was a mess. They put
They
bleachers
did a
up top.
beautiful job with that.
They
Oh my
replaced
goodness.
they replaced the backstop. They put benches in. They put shields on the benches. Well, Eagle Scout put the scoreboard in. They put new clay in the infield every time, every
Wow.
year.
That's
So
a lot.
no, I'm talking JV.
JV,
They
okay.
completely rebuilt the softball fields up top.
Right, up-
Those are
up on the-
completely rebuilt by GAA.
And did they do the hill as,
They did the hill.
did
I
the
didn't
hill?
know the GAA did the hill. Wow.
Which hill do you mean? Do you mean the hill going
Going
like the
up
road?
the J-
No, going upstairs or
Yeah,
or behind
going-
the JV field,
Going upstairs to that JV
Up to the
field.
softball.
up to the softball field?
up those
Well,
stairs.
I go up for the soccer field, for soccer
Yeah,
games.
they
yes.
cleared all that.
That was there.
That
And I
beautiful
mean, they
work.
cleared it out themselves. I mean, there were guys
That was a
from GAA.
lot
did
of
that.
work.
Peter did the road.
Right.
Right.
The road.
Right.
And he did
So
all
that
the mulching and all that kind of
Handicapped
stuff.
people could drive up,
Yeah.
yes.
Correct.
Because there's
But
a lot of
they-
grandparents
and
that try
at
to go to
Pembroke,
those.
they
Yeah.
they built those new fields there. They put the lights up. They have virtually worked on every single field. And then what would happen is the soccer board, for example, would pay to have the soccer fields aerated,
Aerated and
seated,
seated.
and fun. You know, and then we were responsible for the football field. That's basically
That's what we did.
we
That
did
was
that.
our.
Okay.
And so with that, they identified the need for improved fields and came up with this turf field program. Over the years, they've been, I don't know exactly how they've done it, but they've been putting money in reserves to develop the field and come up with this. So this is really their master plan, if you will, for this whole area. And I know that George and Ann were working with them for several years, and it was held up, I believe, because the cost is so expensive, they couldn't afford to fully fund it themselves.
Right.
And the law didn't allow for the site work to be done by
Right.
CPC on an existing field.
Right.
So now the law has changed and it allows CPC funds to be used for the site work,
Excellent.
which opens up the opportunity for them to continue on with this turf project. So that's why we're faced with it. So are there any other questions about the project, what it involves, what you know, anything?
Carol's been very thorough with providing us all the information.
Well, Robert asked me a couple of questions, and I think the focus question he asked me, which was interesting to me, and I thought, oh, I can do something with this, was, you know, how can we verify that this particular project isn't a standalone project, that it is in the best interest of the town and the schools in terms of, you know, meeting the needs that the town might have. Because all the time I've been here, everybody's always said, there's not enough fields, or the quality of the fields isn't great. So that led me to say, well, maybe I should talk to someone who leads an organization that uses the fields.
Right.
So, you know, then I'll know like what the need is, what the gap is. And so that's the genesis of where I went with this, is I was trying to convince myself in my own mind that there was actual justification based on the needs of the town as to why this particular project would allow some unmet needs to be met, increase the accessibility, maybe allow us to better maintain the fields we have, because some of them are kind of embarrassing. You know, and I know the town struggles with West Street because of the location of it. It's very hard for them to fertilize it because of the water supply being so close.
Yeah.
So, you know, I went down there for the girls tournament games and thought, oh, this is not a very good field, you know, and blaming no one. It's, you know, I'm sure there are really good reasons for it. So the goal here would be if there could be on a rotating basis, maybe an opportunity to rest a field and really aerate and seed it and fertilize it. And, you know, I'd love to see all our fields be like the Pearly fields. Those are good fields, you know, and I think our kids deserve to, town kids and school kids deserve to play on quality fields. So, but there, you know, as you see from the articles, there are, you know, two sides to every story, right? And, you know, it was very interesting to read articles on the pros and cons. And I think Lana and Rob last time, you know, kind of raised a few of those, and they are substantiated in the research as factors that need to be considered. But it's like anything else, right? You have to weigh the pros and the cons, and so
And I
that,
think the other thing that we need to be, one thing that keeps coming up is, well, what about Pembroke? And it's a new,
Right.
it's a new school and new fields. I think there's a couple things that go along with that. Last I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was room for a new field toward almost where the playground is right now. There's some type of field programmed for there right now.
Not
No.
high school level.
Well, right, so
Right.
that was my point. It's not, it's of the younger level, I'm guessing.
yeah,
That is
Probably.
similar to what you have now, but
Right.
That is correct.
So that doesn't help our field
High
issue at the
school
high school.
Field.
So I think, we have the JV field up there now. And if we were to take that field out, we'd have serious field scheduling issues because we only have 2 regulation fields in town, that being the varsity and JV. And I don't know that the JV is a regulation size field strictly.
I learned this. The base paths are the are the 90
90.
feet.
90 foot.
But John's
The
gonna
radius
be,
of the
John's not gonna
outfield,
be very happy with me.
versus
saying, But the
75?
radius of the field should be also 90 feet, and it's only 75. So he said the plan in the new turf field would be to put that at real regulation.
Okay.
So we can play on it at the JV level, but we wouldn't be able to really do a varsity game there.
Okay.
And the reason it's not the regulation is because they were trying to make sure that the outfield did not impinge as much on the football field.
Okay.
So that's
Oh, so they brought
why
it in.
that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They brought it in. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
John was very helpful on the
Yeah,
phone.
yeah, John
He
is
was
great, yeah. Okay.
So as far as the new school, that's the, just something that everyone should know. It doesn't really factor, it factors into it, but it doesn't alleviate the field issues at the high school.
Exactly.
Well, I just want to say that I appreciate all the information.
You're very welcome.
But, and I did some more research on my own as well, and I've been really thinking about this since our last meeting. And the idea of an artificial turf field just goes against everything I believe in. And one of the pieces of information that I thought was important for this committee to consider is the cost of replacing the field, maintenance and replacement of this field. And I think that there's a lesson in what we've been through with the Pembroke School. 40 years ago, this town voted to build a school that, as we heard at our town meeting, was described as a California school. So it seemed to me that the scientific community at that time, why there might have been people in that community who would have stood up and argued that we were really getting in trouble building a California style school in New England. Their voices were either not heard or were overlooked. But I think that scientific community is growing and their voices are gaining prominence. And I think they're more worth listening to today so that in 40 years, we're not in a situation where turf fields are now recognized as being so harmful that we have to eliminate them. And from what I read, the cost of disposing of one of those fields is astronomical. Not only the turf that's on top, but that sublayer is extremely hard to get rid of and then to return to what you would need to grow a grass field. And that's extremely costly. So given that I think the state that our world is in, where we're understanding the impact of putting man-made artificial things on the planet is growing. We're understanding more and more that negative impact, and we're moving away from them. And we even have new environmental standards going into our Pembroke School, but at a great cost to this town. I just think it's worth considering. You know, is that something that we want to put ourselves in for generations from now, when the understanding of the negative impact of these kinds of fields has grown? And they haven't been around long enough.
That's a valid point.
Okay.
Very valid.
first of all, I just have a lot of respect for you.
Thank you.
It's always harder to say the things when it's not on the popular side of whatever. I just have a great deal of respect for that. Part of these questions that I raised last time, I just want to share for you, Alana, if this helps, is I continue to, it's a small community in terms of the design world that's involved with these, and everybody kind of knows everybody. And so I was talking with some people that are in the industry, same profession, but focusing specifically on turf fields. And when you compare, when you take a look at the empirical studies that have been done that are worth looking at, Penn State is a big group that has done an awful lot of them, and there are others. And like what they've done in all of them, pretty much is they compare this is the injury issue.
Mm-hmm.
They compare them to fields that are collegiate Class A fields that are in great shape. And long story short, when you compare for injuries these turf fields to fields like Georgetown's and the vast majority of fields in small towns where they can't keep them up, the injuries, you could make a case that it's a wash. The issue with turf fields is that there's no give with the foot, and that's the issue. And so it's knees and ankles.
Turf toe.
The
Yeah, I learned that.
That's another one. The issue. This is just how I came to ending up with where I am with it today. The other the environmental issue. You can actually have a field that is, I think 75, and I'm not positive, but I believe 100% recyclable. They have materials out there, and one of the things that is important when this next committee gets together is that when they put together the specifications for what the field is going to be, certain fields are not and certain fields are, and it costs more in the beginning, but on the other end of it, when you
Right.
dispose but you reuse, you actually
Right.
can save. For a project this size, the number that we came up with was $40,000 that you could save on the other end of doing the field again for the second time.
If you were to do a completely recyclable field right now.
Yeah. So that was that issue. The issue of, and this was a new fact for me, the issue of infections.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence seems to be pretty darn clear that I think it's staph, and what the other one begins with an M.
MRSA?
Yes.
Those two, they cannot live on the artificial turf in the heat. The heat kills them.
It doesn't cause them to grow. Oh, that's interesting.
So what actually
It's
is
one advantage of the
What
heating,
actually-
turf heating, right?
what actually happens is that the injury of burns and whatever
Sure,
happens
right.
on the field, but they acquire it somewhere else in the
Oh, so the
facility,
back, okay.
inside the facility. Not much. There's nothing you can do about the heat. You just got to live with it. You can spray water on it,
water.
You spray it.
but then it turns into a humid. You're down in Florida, and it's dry in 20 minutes, and it goes right back up
Sure.
again. So, and irrigation is cost prohibitive. And when I weighed all of that stuff with the problem that Georgetown has with they don't have enough fields, and even by trying to use the new Pembroke project as a way to get new fields and whatnot, they still are going to be short.
Sure.
It was kind of
Well, Rob, what about maintenance
um,
on a turf field?
Well, according to the information, it maintenance should be less. You know,
That's not necessarily what I saw in everything I read. So
Okay.
I found conflicting evidence.
yeah.
The way I resolved that question for myself was that in the committee that comes up, I'm assuming they're going to have a fund that's part of this that addresses that issue.
But that's a concern, like that, to make that assumption, because
I agree.
You know, things like, in one of the articles I read, animal feces and urine, gum.
Seeds.
There is
Yeah,
maintenance.
all of those
There-
things that are, you know, need to be dealt with, right?
Yeah, there's absolutely a cost associated with it.
And and one of the articles I read suggested that that's a cost of new equipment to manage
Oh,
all of
yeah,
that.
there would be probably equipment that you
Yep.
would need to purchase, absolutely. But, you know, you wouldn't necessarily need to mow it and, you know, so there's a,
But we already own mowers. We're already
there's no
mowing,
doubt
so
that
there's-
there'll be some requirement to
So,
purchase something
so
additionally.
it's not clear that all of that's been accounted for in,
There is no budget that's been established anywhere for any of this, except the GAA is interested in making a donation to the district for the cost of the turf. The other money that comes through will have to do with probably some site work that CPC might be able to put together. There will also have to be some agreements as to, you know, I would guess that, if there was money raised from the use of the field, that it would go into a fund that could be used for maintenance or
First
would be
use
used
for
for maintenance. You know, so those things all have to be worked out. I think the issue here is, you know, of course, we need to acknowledge that, you know, all this stuff needs to be worked out, but, you know, is the school department interested in, you know, if all things check out and the committee recommends it and recommends to the Board of Selectmen that, you know, this project go forward and the money all gets laid out, who pays for what and all of that, then would the school committee want to accept that and allow it to be placed on the
I
field?
think that's a really different question from the question that you said we'd be voting on tonight. Because
Okay.
that sounds to me like we can stipulate if we're going to have a fully recyclable field, if the money that's being donated will also help us to acquire the equipment we need to maintain this field, all of these things that we've just said, well, we can do it this way. But I would hate to see us go ahead and say, yes, we're in favor of a turf field, and all we get is money for the turf, and now our hands are tied, and then the schools are saddled with the cost of the maintenance and the extra cost at the time when the time to replace the field comes.
Well, the school, just to answer,
Yeah.
we will be responsible for maintaining the field, but it's on our property. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Where the money will come from that, in terms of, you know, how we would create a fund for that, and what that would actually cost, certainly needs to be continued to be, you know, studied a little more deeply. Part of what this GAA has also said they were doing is they're raising money for the cost of the turf, but they're also setting aside money every year. And how they do this is when people register, they tell them this much money is going to the cost of the program your child's experiencing, and then this much money is going toward the
Replacement of the field.
It would be their expectation. But I honestly think that it's not really reasonable for us to think that we're going to get a significant donation. CPC is going to put all this money into it, and then we're going to say, oh, and by the way, it's not our job to maintain it. That's part of your discussion, is that, you know, we just don't know what that figure is. I
We
think
just talked about the fact of level funding and,
But we already,
But we
do
have maintenance.
We have maintenance now.
but that maintenance isn't sufficient to keep our fields in good shape. Our current fields.
and that's part of the
And
argument.
that's
is that
part of the argument
Yeah.
of putting in the turf, which is typically a lower cost to maintain than the grass or dirt that we have now.
Is it not true that we're going to have a vote in the future regarding the design, the decision about specific, whether we use recyclable or whether we don't? I mean, just like with the new school, we voted on a specific design, a preferred alternative design. is,
I think that would be the other committee.
That's
right?
the other
committees.
committee.
The
That's,
committee
You,
that
you
they
will
would
have a
set
rep
up,
on
I
that
think.
committee,
have a-
who will
we-
come back and
We'll have-
report to you.
okay.
And will
All right.
allow your questions to come back and forth to the committee.
there's a
okay, but we will
town,
certainly have input into
Oh, absolutely.
whether it's recyclable or not. It's
Well, you
not
can,
just,
you obviously can have it, yeah.
we can have input, but bear in mind that the GAA is making the donation
right,
to us.
right.
So if we determine as a committee that this is something that we're not comfortable with, then that's what we decide. But that's the end of the discussion. It's not, okay, now how do we get a new football field and a new baseball field?
Right.
That doesn't, it's not, okay, we like that you want to do this. We don't want turf. Instead, we want you to do this.
Right, that's not the option.
That's not the option.
Right.
This is kind of like I talked to David Surface about this tonight because I wasn't at the Board of Selectmen meeting. So when they talked about the committee, so I wanted to understand it because I anticipated there'd be discussion about this committee tonight. And they're looking, it's a 7-member committee. It's
Yep.
town appointed, so it is subject to open meeting law. All of the discussions that are in open session. People can come, raise their concerns, ask their questions. And the purpose of the committee is to look at this option, and certainly David mentioned that, you know, because the GAA I know had expressed, had done a study of what to do if we just couldn't get the turf, you know, how they would put some things up on the upper field, you know, if we put a turf field on the top field or upgraded the fields on the top. So John has all that information, which would be discussed with the committee as well. The goal is for that committee to make a recommendation. They are advisory to the Board of Selectmen, basically.
They're advisory, so they're different than the building committee in that regard.
Well, the building committee is technically, you know, an advisory committee
Advisory.
They'd
too.
be very
They're
similar to
appointed
the
by the
building
Board of
committee, wouldn't they?
Selectmen.
I thought
But
they were.
they would be very similar to the building committee.
David said it was a similar role to the building committee.
Right, and so just as we approved a preferred design for the new school, wouldn't we be at some point asked to vote to approve a preferred design for the turf field?
I don't know.
I don't know how that's going to work.
I think
Okay.
you'll receive definitely a presentation on it. This is what the decision of the recommendation of the group is to the Board of Selectmen. You know, I'm sure that will occur, but whether or not you get to approve the final product, I'm not sure that that's the intention.
For the process?
The process.
Right.
I mean, it may be, but I think I'd be telling you something I'm not sure about.
I mean,
You know.
it was my understanding that it was, that we were going to be able to vote.
I
on-
can't
Yeah,
say yes.
I know
so
that we'll
you-
have a rep on it.
Right.
And so we can funnel everything through that representative.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, and
That
if you
maybe-
think about how the school building committee works, I don't know that.
You approved the grade
if-
configuration
but-
because you're required
But when
to.
we have to take when we go through all the documents, it's the school committee and the Board of Selectmen that do the final sign off. The building committee doesn't sign it, do they? I
No,
don't
the
think-
building committee is advisory.
Advisory.
Right, so this would be the same, so it would be the chair of the school committee and the chair of the Board of Selectmen that have the final sign off. But actually, there's no funding requirements. There's no, so therein lies the
you would
question.
accept
the
a
funding
donation.
requirement goes to the town.
It's the town, the CPC
We
would do
would
the
vote
fund-
to accept the donation.
We would, exactly.
Okay. And that would happen after we had seen a design. And
Correct.
so if we vote to move everything forward now, and for some reason the design was not something that we were comfortable with, I'm,
Guys, if you don't vote
It-
tonight
yeah.
to approve
Can I-
approve a member,
Wait,
I want to.
it's gonna be a problem.
well,
Oh,
can-
right,
wait,
It's just for the
right, no.
committee, just to
Right.
be on the
wait, wait,
committee.
wait, why-
Absolutely.
I can
I'm just-
appreciate, you know, this plan, I was looking at it from Gale, and
Mm-hmm.
it's dated 2010.
Yep.
And I can appreciate, you know, all of the effort that so many people have put in to this in the past. Everybody is trying to make this work, and some people have some questions.
Yep.
Why this is another question, why do we have to vote tonight on it?
What more,
These questions that
Well-
I'm hearing now, they're not getting answered.
Well, what questions, I'm not sure I
Yeah.
understand.
What's the
What
question?
questions are not being
For
answered?
instance, there's two types of turf.
gonna
There's
vote?
one that's recyclable and there's one that's non-recyclable.
Right, it's not our call right now.
That's-
So it sounds like if
So,
we vote,
if you hold up your vote because you wanna insist you're only gonna accept it if it's recyclable, that's not the task.
Right.
That you
No,
can,
I don't.
that, well, that's what I'm
That was
hearing her
just the
say.
question she
But I-
asked.
That's
but
the
I
question.
think, well, let me try.
Go ahead.
I think what I was hearing was, or at least this is what I was hearing,
Yeah.
was that as the school project, the new Pembroke project came before this committee in many steps, and this committee was asked as a committee, not a one-person representative, to vote yes or no. That going to happen with this project? And we don't know the answer to that. And it seems like it's in that process of where the whole committee can then feel like they're not accepting a product that is a great product and we're thankful for, but that's going to straddle the district with costs
Yeah,
down the road
yeah.
that they're not prepared.
Well, I think what we're trying to determine is if we have the support, if we agree to install a field, providing that it's recommended by the town committee.
Right, I think that was the motion, right?
Yeah, that would be it.
The motion is.
Yeah.
So, to support a field as recommended by the committee. So the question is, do you put your faith in the committee to come up with what they feel is appropriate
For the schools.
for the schools?
Right.
And the committee is made up of seven
Voting
voting
members.
members,
Seven
and where were
voting
they from?
And some are at-large members.
There's,
Okay.
there'll be a CPC,
See-
no, I'm sorry, Park and Rec, GAA, and School Committee will be 3 members.
Okay.
And then there'll be 4 members at large,
I'm a non-voting member.
and Carol is a non-voting member.
So the way that would work would be you as a committee or individual people that felt that this issue of the quality of the turf, the makeup, the
composition
material
of
of
the
the turf, really needed to, in your opinion, you'd like to see strong consideration for recycled material. Because I don't know in the drawings, Rob, if they got into whether they're recyclable or not or
There's
anything like that.
just a
That's not that.
diagram. No,
So
no,
the
there's
design development
diagrams.
process is not like at that level.
Not even close.
So whoever the rep
They're
is.
gonna have to actually go out to bid for
Yes.
3 firms to design it.
Yes, okay. So what would then happen would be the representative person would take your concerns, just as Rob sits on the building committee, you don't all go to all the meetings, but you tell Rob, this is what we're kind of interested in having. Rob comes back and reports back and forth to you. That's the same kind of a process. Now, the question you're asking is there, or at what point is there the possibility or the need or the role of the school committee to have any approvals of any decisions that get made?
Right.
Because it's coming onto our property, if it comes on our property, we will have to accept the donation. So I know that that's one place the committee would have to,
So
do
they'll-
that.
There's
Let me just
another
say
future
again,
approval.
I think I can say this more clearly.
Okay.
My concern is that we would be accepting a donation
Right.
that would cause the Georgetown schools
Mm-hmm.
to incur a great expense, an astronomical expense at some point in the future.
Yeah, and that's a
That
concern.
there's a risk.
But I don't know
And-
that
but
that's the case because
that's-
we don't have enough information to know
But that's
that.
something that we would consider at the next vote, not necessarily tonight. Right? That's something we would consider when we're approving the donation, which is not tonight.
See, there's a process here.
Is that true?
There's a process.
That's what we're
That's
trying to
agreeing
understand, is
to
just the
installation
process.
of it upon recommendation by the town committee. So it's the burden of our rep to say, time out. It's gonna cost X dollars when they get to that stage to replace this field.
Right.
And then it's really their burden to come back and say, listen, it's gonna cost this much. However, GAA, as I understand it, is funding a reserve for the eventual replacement of the field through the fees that we pay for all of
And
our.
annual maintenance is going to
Well,
cost
but
X
now what's,
amount of
okay,
dollars.
here's my question.
We don't
what-
know that.
We don't know that. We don't know what the maintenance is going to be on the field, nor do I know right now what the maintenance is that we spend on the field.
That's part of the study. That's part of the study. That's why we're going, that's why we participate in the committee. Because once they get into the design development, they'll also be able to tell us, this is what it takes to maintain this particular type of field. So if there's a specific, I don't know, Zamboni kind of machine, then that's when we need to figure out, what does that cost? Where is it coming from? Is it something that, again, maybe that comes through a Warren article or a CIP request? Because it's a capital improvement. See, we don't have
It's
don't
just-
have
I
enough
think
information
it's the
tonight. We hear the
wording then.
concern.
Okay, so then it's really the wording of this, that it says to agree to the installation of a turf field. To me, sounds like it's a green light when there are these concerns. If a turf field requires a machine like that, and there's no money in the school budget to purchase that machine, or no place on school property to store such a machine, or no money to train somebody to operate such a machine, how could we accept a turf field?
Well,
How
you
can we
wouldn't,
accept
because
that
it wouldn't go that far.
Well,
We-
see, that's why you
That's
have
why
a
you have a committee.
representative. That's why you have a committee and you have a representative.
I'm sitting on it, Mike Anderson's sitting on it, Joan's probably gonna sit on it. We're not gonna, that's why I want those people on it, because we're not gonna accept something that we can't live with and maintain.
Not to mention that as private citizens, we can go to those meetings because they're
Absolutely,
open meetings. And we
absolutely.
can voice our concerns.
Absolutely.
As private citizens.
Yeah. Excuse me, absolutely.
Yeah,
He's one of our regular attendees.
Hi, Mike.
Where's Waldo?
This is, for those of you that don't know, Mike Murphy, high school English teacher,
Yeah.
Georgetown High School.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on speaking
Hi,
tonight, but
But he's an English teacher, right?
I'm present on behalf of the union. I represent the union. However, I've been a teacher in the district for 12 years, and I've also been a coach, a football coach, for 4 years. So I'm very familiar with the field. I'm very familiar with the geographic placement of the field. I think that everyone's bringing up very valid points. I think that in your role as school committee members, you really have to think of the different constituencies in town and have people's best interests in mind and think long term. I think that it's excellent thinking. However, if you really step back from this, there are people that are potentially watching right now that are seething because now you did mention, Bob, that you recognize the effort that has gone into this. We're talking about a small organization that has raised, I think, $1 million.
There is a lot of money.
I think we really have to put it in perspective and think about all the good things that this provides to the district and school long term. I mean, the analogy that I could bring to the table is that if someone said to you, I want to offer you a Mercedes-Benz, and I want to keep it in your garage, and you're saying, geez, I don't know, I might have to pay excise tax on that, or there may be some issues in the future. You're getting a Mercedes-Benz, I mean, and this is a field that, listen, there are going to be some issues, okay, and I think in future committee meetings you could work out these issues, but it's not like you get it and it just breaks. It's not like there it is and there's dust bowls and we just can't use it. I think that the benefits far outweigh the negatives. As far as some of the points you're bringing up, Bob, regarding injuries, I think that's safety of students is always paramount. Mm-hmm. However, some of the notions that you bring up are antiquated. We're not talking about the AstroTurf of the 1970s Veteran Stadium. I mean, you're talking about a shock absorbing level of field. Granted, I haven't seen all the schematics, but I just would really like to encourage everyone to have an open mind in the process and think about all the hard work that parents have really put into this. Because to pass it, this is an opportunity. It really is. And to pass up on the opportunity, I think, I mean, just beyond making it a community field, if there's a possibility down the road for lights, with fall sports and daylight savings, at 4:00 it's getting dark. You lose field, you lose time. This is an opportunity for more field time, to get other teams in, to have other contests. This is an opportunity for Friday night events. So, again, I think that some of the points are relevant, but I just felt that I had to weigh in on certain issues. So,
I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to respond to a couple things. One, perhaps I didn't make my point very clear with regards to the injury issue, but the point I was trying to make was that if you were to compare a more apples to apples analysis, you'd find that the injuries today on turf in relationship to the injuries on the kinds of fields that Georgetown currently has and that the vast majority of public schools have, it starts to get a little more even there. The second point is just look at the empirical literature. It's very clear in terms of the injury rates. It's not antiquated, not at all.
absolutely.
Totally wrong.
So I disagree with you.
You and I can go look at
Okay,
some.
yeah,
of the-
Okay, let's
You have to factor in. You have to factor in what
that's-
people
that's
are
something
wearing and
else.
things like
That's-
that.
That's,
let's.
that's something else.
I think. I mean, I think overall, there's different points of view on this subject, and I think at the end of the day, I mean, we can argue each point. I mean, there's volumes of data on every point that we've talked about, both sides of every point. I think at the end of the day, we have to decide if we want to support the turf field project or not.
Again, I come back to this question, why do we have to vote tonight? Yeah, I mean, one of the things that the frustration that I think some of the new members are feeling is that for all the time that since 210 you guys have worked so hard with this, is that this group is now being asked to be the ones that are approving the acceptance within 2 weeks.
What's the whole what are you going to learn between now and the next meeting that's going to
In
Well,
January.
in January?
The only thing, well, the question that I thought I heard was, can we as a school committee feel comfortable with the best information available, that we're not going to be incurring a Mercedes-Benz in our garage that we can't afford to
Yes,
fix.
absolutely, you can be assured of that.
That we can't afford to fix.
Well, let me ask you this question: What-
It's the long-term part of the field, I think.
Is everyone here
And if
clear?
that's true, then that's the
But
answer.
Rob, here's the question: how much are we spending on maintenance right now on the field?
I don't have the answers to these.
How
I don't
much?
know.
But how much are we going to have to pay on maintenance for the turf field?
I don't know. That's
That's
the
a
whole
question.
question.
That-
That's the
but,
question.
But here,
That's the purpose of the study.
That's the purpose.
We aren't
of
gonna do that as
establishing
a school committee. The committee that the town is setting up is going to look at all of those issues, and there'll be back and forth with you and your
So
rep.
the question, Carol, is why do we
Yes.
have to vote before we have that information?
That I don't. To my,
I think that the reason it came up was because the discussion at the town level was, well, we don't really want to go forward with all of this work if the school committee doesn't want it. What's the point? What's the point? And that's why it's coming to you. Now, if you want to change the wording of the motion to make it something you're more comfortable with, I don't have a problem with that. But that's the purpose of the discussion, because, the GAA has been under the understanding from previous committees that this was a go.
each time you sign
They
a
went-
child up for a GAA sport, they will. I don't know if they tell you outright, but you can certainly ask, and they will tell
They said
you.
it initially.
You pay X dollars. I don't know what the fees are.
I think they set aside $25 a registration.
$25 to $50 per registration goes into the turf field account. So they've been collecting this.
But you see,
Where's the
they've been
wording of
collecting that money. I would just like to say that, if I had a child who participated in Georgetown athletics and GAA sports, I don't, okay? So I don't know that this money's being collected.
Yeah.
But an organization comes to me and says, asks me to sign up and says, $25 of your sign up is going to be put into this fund. As a busy working parent, I might just assume that person, that fund, I guess those people probably know what they're doing, right? I'll go ahead and give them my money. Or you know what? I'm not in favor of turf fields, but my kid really wants to play sports in town with his friends. Oh well, I'll throw my money into the pot and hope it doesn't ever come to pass. We don't know that. I mean, the fact that they've been collecting this money creates some momentum towards a project that I don't know that there have been, like, all the safety issues or the concerns that the school might have. I'm just afraid those get bulldozed by this large amount of money, this dollar figure that's been collected towards this project. Well, there's this momentum going now, so you're going to stand up and block it?
I really
I'm
think
concerned about that.
think this committee that is gonna come forward
Is gonna
has
answer.
everybody, I mean, the children's best interest, they have, the selectmen are not gonna want to put something in there that they think our townspeople are not going to like.
gonna create a
or it's
liability
going-
for the town.
Exactly.
Well, CPC
I think
funds
we
have to
really
be
have to-
spent by the town at
Right.
town meeting.
But
I
it
think
won't
we
be-
really need to put our faith in this committee that it's going to answer all your questions. I mean, any, and you can go, like, you know,
I understand.
Voting to
But-
continue the process.
I just think holding it up, I think, like Mike had said, I really think that there are parents watching this now saying, are you kidding? Because
I know
it's-
there are.
It's
I know there are. They've
long.
been in touch with
These-
me, believe
but
me.
These people have put so much energy and, more than just energy, I mean, they have put in
Time,
and
personal
effort.
resources.
And I think
totally
that they have
understand
looked
that.
at all of
I-
what we're talking about, but we
We
just don't
probably-
have the answers right here tonight. I really
And so
think
I
we're
just have to
losing
tell
a
you,
huge
I
opportunity.
have put my money and my time and my energy throughout my life into causes that are, I think, operate from a different philosophy than a turf
Yep.
field.
Yep.
That's,
Yep.
so I haven't.
So you
know,
have the opportunity to vote no, and that
So-
people will respect that, if that's your opinion.
And I just wanted to
you
be
need as-
sure that people understood
Yeah.
No,
One
and,
thing-
and they
my
sh-
perspective.
One thing I would encourage, we're talking about this field. I don't know how many people have actually walked the current field.
No, I have.
On a,
People aren't
I
arguing
have.
that
I've
issue.
played on it.
That's not the issue.
and
Rob-
it is
Rob-
the issue, Rob. It
okay,
is the
this-
issue, Rob.
yeah.
Because, yes, it is, because you were talking about safety. It's a safety issue now, Rob.
It is.
That's
You're-
what I said
the-
when you compare the two.
assumption,
they're-
you don't
they're
have to be
equal.
smug, Rob.
That's
The-
what I said.
The assumption.
Okay, Rob,
Okay.
Rob,
Okay.
Mike,
Being
let's
smart.
stop the conversation right now.
The assumption is
Mike,
that it's a
Mike,
safe
Mike,
field.
Mike.
It's not.
And to his point, I mean, the JV baseball field, I have definitely walked. The football field, actually, I've walked during lacrosse,
They're terrible.
and they're not in good shape. And I know that I have a neighbor that has repeatedly told me that there are more knee injuries on our football field than like a whole league put together.
Oh my goodness.
So whether that's fact or fiction, I'm not certain. So
Yep, there's no one's arguing that.
So I think the issue before us is, do we want to vote to support the field or not, pending the outcome of the town turf committee, for lack of a better word, pending the recommendation of the town turf committee.
Before I vote, I just want to ask the question, and I think you answered it, Carol.
Yeah.
So can we, as a school committee, be sure that voting yes now is not going to saddle the school district with a cost for something associated with maintenance that we're gonna have to pull out of somewhere else because we don't have it in the budget?
Right, we do not have to accept the donation of the field at the end of the day.
And it's incumbent on Carol and the representative, as
Yeah.
well as Mike
So the
Anderson.
answer,
So the-
so you're,
We're
We're all
gonna,
set.
we,
in that
we,
regard.
yeah,
That's my-
all
that's
the
my
town
concern.
wants to know is if all things get vetted, all the boards, it passes conservation, because I know Alana had some questions about the conservation. It still has to go to conservation, it still has to go, planning, I think, has to look at it. It's at I would say the early stages, you saw the schematics, they're
Yeah,
very,
they're
they're
not-
very beginning stages. There's still some work that needs to be done. If through that process, it ends up being that this is not going to be a viable project because the schools are sitting there going, whoa, if it's going to cost us all this money, we can't do it. Or CPC says, oh, sorry, we can only do certain
That's-
part of it. That's the process. That's what I've been trying to say. That's the
That
committee.
answers my question.
Okay, great.
Can I speak on behalf of the students?
Absolutely.
We actually had a discussion about this in our student council meeting this morning, and
Timely.
because I was reading, I got this pack and I was reading through it, and this really interested me. I mean, as a player, I've been playing on that field, and to be completely honest, it's horrible.
On a good day.
Yeah, it's constantly flooded. It's usually we have to go to West Street because after it rains, we can't play on it for a couple days. And after one football game, the field is just a mud bowl. It really is. And whether or not this committee decides to approve it, it needs to be improved in some way. And in my personal opinion, I think, and with the other kids, I've played on turf fields, and they are the best fields I've ever played on. And talking to everyone in the student council, they also really want it. So I think to disregard the students' opinion is wrong, because those are the kids who are going to be playing on it. It's not you guys. I mean, you know,
Hey.
yeah, maybe, but
Don't you know they're setting up a school committee?
You have a good point there.
so to
Very good point.
Yes.
But I think to let this pass, or even just the opportunity to go forward with it, and then to find out that it's not viable, that's one thing. But to just even say no from the beginning, I think is wrong. And I think that we should give it the opportunity. But if it fails, it fails, and that's an issue for another day. But if we say no to it now, it's never going to happen.
Well, thanks for bringing it up for your committee. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah,
that
that's
input.
good.
That's
Very well
great.
said. Glad you read your packet.
Get insomnia one night.
I thank everyone for their time.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Mike, thanks a lot. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you, thank you. Shall we move the motion?
So if there's issues with the motion, is there a suggestion on a modification to it? I mean, it sounds like the group might have interest in being part of the committee, approving, being part of the committee and sending a rep to represent the school committee. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that could be one motion.
Yeah.
Right, and it sounds like what people are saying is that they don't necessarily wanna say they commit to the installation, but from what I remember, really what the board is looking for, or the Board of Selectmen was looking for, is we don't wanna go through all this work, go to CPC, do all that stuff, if the school committee is gonna say at the outset, we're not interested in a turf field. And, right, so that's really what they're looking for. They're not so much looking that you're saying, no matter what, we're taking the field. There's a lot of process that needs to go on before this. Okay, and ultimately you do have to accept the donation, because it's a donation that alters the school property, which is the school committee's purview.
But not tonight. That's not what this vote is about.
That's right. That's what I'm
No,
trying
she
to.
just said when we acceptance
Okay.
of the donation
No,
would be.
not tonight.
That-
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to get at. So
This
is
is
there
to
a way
indicate our
to
interest.
So I think
express
the
even-
motion includes that we,
Yes.
I
Agree
think
to
Pam
s-
just said it.
Did you have
really,
a suggestion?
That the motion is that we are interested
yep,
in a turf field, not that we are agreeing to install it, but we are interested in considering a turf field
Okay.
when, after all of the concerns have been appropriately investigated and addressed.
can we support a turf field at the high school, providing that it is recommended by the town's committee that has been established to study and oversee the project?
We're interested in considering installation of a turf field at the high school.
Does that,
Wait a minute, I'm trying to think of what's the next, so we're interested in.
no, we agree to support a turf field project, providing that it's recommended by the town committee that's been established to oversee and study it. So we're saying we support it as long as the town
But
committee.
okay, so correct me if I'm wrong here. If there is an established committee, we don't yet have a representative on that committee.
You're gonna
am I
have to
That's
correct?
decide
what we
next.
have to
The second
decide, that's the
motion.
next motion.
That's what you're deciding next.
Because this, to me, an established committee is a done deal.
The committee's been established, and it has members. We have to appoint. It has people that are going to be appointed. It's a school committee person.
Okay.
We have to determine who that school
Okay.
committee person is.
Okay.
It's not yet determined, and it will include, a school committee person is there.
The last packet that we got, it had asked
Right.
Who
anyone
wanted to be on it.
interested.
Yes.
And
To be a
Carol
member,
says
so-
this right in the next motion.
Yes, I
To
understand.
appoint, to serve on the committee. And it was established, I think, Monday night.
Yes, I believe it was, yeah.
I talked to David on Monday. and that's
compilation
what-
was.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just trying to, I'm still, go ahead, Ann, get your motion. I was trying to
So-
capture what they were talking about in terms of,
Okay, so, the chair will entertain a motion to agree to support the installation of a turf field at the high school, provided that such field is recommended and approved by the town's committee that has been established to study and oversee the turf project.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Are you abstaining?
that's true, she could do that too.
No, I'm voting to support the motion.
Thank you.
All right, so then we have,
I'd just like to make a comment now before we go on.
Yep.
You know, again, I want to reiterate that I recognize a lot of people have put a lot of time into this, but I'm going to push back a little. And you know, the idea of seething at people asking questions is, as far as I'm concerned, unacceptable. The idea that we can't, as a board in public, have this kind of discussion, which is exactly what the process is about, I just reject completely. So I'm very proud of how this board just handled this particular situation.
What are the seething?
That was
I-
what
That was a
comment.
comment that
comment
came
that there
Oh,
are people who are
okay.
watching
That was
this
a
meeting who are
comment that came from-
seething, and I,
Oh, okay.
you know, the word
That's
turf
just
makes
what I
my
wanted to
blood
say.
boil. I will admit to not being fully informed and not having it's very hard to find all the most relevant, up-to-date information on a topic that is so way out of my daily realm of existence. But I made an effort to do so, and I appreciate what Rob could bring to this meeting to help me to understand what I don't know. But I don't know about this stuff. And I need to know, and I need to have a place where I can come and have all my concerns addressed. And I would be more than happy to serve on this committee, although I know there are other people in this room who are also interested. And you all know that I will be the person who makes the meetings go longer and asks more questions
There's nothing
if
wrong
I
with asking the
am.
questions, though. There's
So
nothing,
those
and
of you who are
that's not-
seething in the audience might not want to watch those meetings if I am on the committee, because I will be asking difficult questions, but.
So the next motion is to appoint a committee member. Barbie indicated that she wanted to be on that committee. Is there an issue with that? Because and you had as well.
Yeah.
Is it a
We
problem?
haven't talked.
You're all set?
What, we haven't, she
Oh.
and I hadn't talked.
So is it a problem with you if I nominate her? Because she was the first one to respond, and
I'll
I know,
nominate myself.
and I know she has the time. So, but
you'll
I mean,
nominate yourself.
No, as soon as I saw it, I had sent you an email and Ann
Yeah, you
saying
did.
that I would be interested in doing it, so, whoever else, I nominate myself.
I don't know if that really does it
Yeah.
require a second? I mean,
all right. So
does it require a vote, or is there a consensus that Barbie represents? I mean, people need to speak up
yeah,
now.
everyone speak up. If it's,
I'm comfortable with
I'm
Barb.
comfortable with Barb representing the
Yes,
school
yes.
committee.
I'm taking the nod as a yes.
No, I'm not saying no.
Okay. All right.
I appreciate that.
Barbie, it's not,
I
it's
think-
not Barbie, it's not you, it's,
I promise to bring all of your
yeah, I don't.
comments,
You can
concerns,
go
everything.
too. You
And
can
you
go to
can
the
go.
meetings.
No,
Okay.
no.
You
no,
can even send a letter and ask to be on
No,
it.
That's
you either,
what-
no, you're either a member and you can devote that kind of time to it, and you can get into the number of fibers per square foot that's required in the spec when you start going after this stuff, or you don't.
But
I
you
don't
can-
have time to, no, I don't
Okay.
have time to do both.
Okay, so I'm not sure what that
Yeah,
means.
so I don't
What
know.
I'm saying is you're either a member or you're not.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Well-
You're
So,
either a member or you're not. I
yeah.
don't have time to do both.
Okay.
Okay.
I myself go to a lot of different open public meetings. I enjoy it. I become, I learn a lot when I
I
go.
think she came to every meeting the year before she was on our committee.
And I
She
spoke
did.
up on, a couple of occasions when I felt it was necessary, and that's part of the democratic process.
It is.
Yeah.
All right,
And
so
Barb, one more thing, Barb, would you be able to inform all of us when these meetings are going to take place?
Sure.
Thank you.
just like Rob does with the building committee. Just,
Yes, when future meetings are gonna take place.
Okay, thank you.
so, do we need to vote? Yeah, we do
Yeah.
need to vote because
Yeah.
it's a town committee. So the chair will entertain a motion to appoint Barbie Linares to serve on the town committee for the turf project.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion?
second myself.
You can.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Barbie.
The budget,
Budget timeline.
Thank you very much.
You took care of.
budget
Yeah.
timeline I took care of at the beginning. I don't have an update. As soon as I get that, I'll send out an email. Hopefully Andy and I will talk in the next few days and get that figured out. Strategic plan, is there anything to talk about? You got
No,
everybody's
I
input?
got everybody's input, and I appreciate that.
And we're gonna get you're gonna send us a book or a little
send you a
binder.
binder,
Yep.
and I'm gonna try to work in a few of the things that people had suggested. And if I have any questions or comments, I'll definitely talk to the individual people. So I know you're interested in the media literacy. I want to know a little bit more about that, how it might fit. But otherwise, I think I have what I need. If you're, pretty much your comments, other than a few questions people had, I think some of the things really probably are more things that I can address in other ways. They're not necessarily the strategic plan. It's not the vehicle, but I promise if you give them to me, I will address them.
All right. Next up is the first reading of the new policy GBEB-E, the confidentiality agreement. It's the first read. First reading, we don't vote.
No, it's questions.
Okay,
The
it's
first
just-
reading, you just
Yep.
asked.
So it just had a vote next to it. Updated homeschool approval.
You have to vote on this.
So we have to vote on the acceptance of any revisions to this. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the request for homeschooling for the 2012-13 school year as presented.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we do have an executive session to go into, but this is our last meeting for those of you that are sitting at home until the new year. So I hope that everyone enjoys whatever holiday you celebrate in the next month with your family and friends, and enjoy your time off around the school break. Happy holidays to everybody. We'll be going into executive session and not returning to regular session. It's a roll call vote.
So,
Lana?
So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. Second. If someone needs a second.
Second.
so moved. Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Yeah, it has to be yes, sorry.
Do you need to
yes.
state the purpose, Ann?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're going in for, to discuss litigation. And it is chapter 30A, paragraph 21, section 3.
Yes.
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 All right. We're in executive session.
Thank you, Cole.
Yep.
Merry Christmas.